the sacrifice of every brave man and woman in our country. The Philippine Army has and would do very well in the jungle combat setting. Most Filipino islands are covered in tropical jungle. The Philippines are a geographically diverse country, from mountains to volcanoes to the jungles. The military is still actively fighting Islamic and communist rebel groups. The army constantly trains in the jungle environment. They train in everything from fighting to survival to maneuvering and building defensive positions, just to name a few. Since most of the Philippines is mostly jungle, its population is already largely acclimated to its conditions. The jungle tends to be very hot, humid and wet. There is a lot of disadvantages to fighting in the jungle. The vegetation can make for poor lines of sight and ineffective arcs of fire. This can be overcome with training and prior knowledge though. The Philippines constantly trains with other militaries in jungle warfare. Every year the Philippines hosts the Balakatan exercise. It tends to host partners like the United States and Australia. It is designed to keep the interoperability of these partner nations and refine skill sets and learn new things on fighting and insurgency. How a nation does in the jungle largely depends on what each country's native environment is, how much they've trained in it and how well prepared they are. For example, the United States has its own jungle warfare training center in Hawaii. The United States also has experience fighting in the jungles of South America and Southeast Asia. Multiple conflicts built this experience. So we could fare rather well in the jungle. If a country like, let's say, maybe Germany or Canada, depending how much they train for the jungle is how they're going to do. It could be poorly or it could go well. It really does depend. For those who risk their lives to protect our freedom, it is a selfless act of valor that is done without asking anything in return. The brave men and women of the military should always be honored for their sacrifice. Our military deserves to be honored and appreciated. The freedom and liberty we enjoy is much because of the brave men and women of the military who dedicate their lives to protecting the nation. Many of them have had to sacrifice their lives just so the rest of us can live in a free and prosperous society. It takes a great amount of courage and sacrifice to do what our soldiers do. Many of these great men and women have families of their own who they have to leave behind as they go to defend their country. The least we can do for our military men and women is to honor and be thankful for their unselfish deeds. The discipline which makes the soldiers of a free country reliable in battle is not to be gained by harsh or tyrannical treatment. On the contrary, such treatment is far more likely to destroy than to make an army. It is possible to impart instruction and give commands in such a manner and such a tone of voice as to inspire in the soldier no feeling but an intense desire to obey, while the opposite manner and tone of voice cannot fail to excite strong resentment and a desire to disobey. The one mode or the other in dealing with subordinates springs from a corresponding spirit in the breast of the commander. He who feels the respect which is due to others cannot fail to inspire in them respect for himself, while he who feels, and hence manifests, disrespect toward others, especially his subordinates, cannot fail to inspire hatred against himself. Without a word, this uniform also whispers of freezing troops, injured bodies, and Filipinos left forever in foreign fields. It documents every serviceman's courage, who by accepting this uniform, promises the one gift he truly has to give, his life. I wear my uniform for the heritage of sacrifice it represents and more. I wear my uniform with pride, for it represents the greatest nation of free people in the world. The most significant sacrifice of every soldier who did or did not return from battlefields is their readiness to give one life for thousands of other lives. Millions of the dead are unknown and will remain such for good. Still, they have done something incredibly great, and this something is their willingness to give everything they have for the sake of others. They adopt the profession of arms, and they submit their own free will to a law of perpetual constraints. Of their own accord, they resist their right to live where they choose, to say what they think, to dress as they like. It needs but in order to settle them from their families, and dislocate their normal lives. In the world of commands, they must rise, march, run, they endure bad weather, and they go out without sleep or food. They isolated in some distant post, work until they drop. They have ceased to become masters of their own fate. If they drop on their tracks, their ashes shall be scattered in the four winds. that the hardest part of their duty, their sacrifice and service in our country. If you agree, click subscribe for more videos.